Okay, all right.
All right. So yes, you're now the host. Please proceed with the session.
Okay, all right. So I'm about to share my screen. I believe everyone can see it now. Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, thank you, George. So today I'll be talking about the how-to of UX research. Majorly, my deep dive would be into conducting usability testing. And the purpose of this is because I remember when I got this topic, when I saw the chance to pick the topic, I was really excited. And well, the whole idea about user research is that it's very broad. And I thought about why not delve deep into something very specific, something that we can all talk about and leave here today with the ability to conduct on our own. So, hi everyone. I would like us to introduce ourselves. We could just go with our first names, talk about something fun, maybe our favorite design book or our favorite movie, and that's just it. So who would like to go first? Hello, people. Can you guys hear me?
Sorry, come again, please. I didn't hear what you said.
So what I said is I would like us to do a bit of introduction. So I'm referring to you guys, some form of introduction. Just introduce yourself. You can start with your first name, your favorite design book, and your favorite movie. Did you get that? Who would like to go first?
Okay, hi, good morning. I'd like to go first.
Hi, Tosi. Hi.
Okay, my name is Tosin. I hardly talk in classes anyway, but I've not really read so many design books. And I just love watching animation movies, that's all.
Impressive. Impressive.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tosin, for coming first. Because of that, check your accounts later today. Your account balance.
Hey, Oshay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we'd like to go next. Let's quickly just brush through this. So, hi, Esther.
Hi, my name is, you already know my name. Okay. My name is Esther. I don't think I've read any design books, so I don't have it. I rarely have favorite movies because I get into every movie I watch, but currently I'm watching the Blacklist series.
Impressive.
So yeah, that's it.
Nice to meet you, Esther. Nice to meet you, Esther. We'd like to go next. Maybe we'll just take.
Hello. Good morning. My name is George.
Okay, George.
Yeah. My favorite design book will have to be "Design Is a Job" by Mike Montero.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite design. My favorite movie, you said.
Movie, yeah. You don't have any?
I like Inglourious Bastards. Inglourious Bastards. Yeah.
Impressive.
Hello.
Nice to meet you, George.
Yeah. So yeah.
And so we'll take one more introduction, then we start. Since a lot of people are shy to introduce themselves.
Hello.
Hi, Anu.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Anu. I'm currently reading The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. Yeah, and I don't have any favorite movie. I'm a movie fan, but I'm currently watching The Blacklist.
Yeah. Is The Blacklist like an assignment by the team or something.
No. Amazing series. Sorry.
Yeah, it's very amazing.
Sorry, Anu, please, what season are you in?
Season 4.
Impressive.
Season 4. Yeah. What of you?
Right. I'm still in season 3. I just started a while ago.
Oh, okay. You still have a long way to go. Enjoy. All right.
All right. Since we're talking about Blacklist, so my name is Raymond Reddington.
Hi, Raymond. Hi, Red.
Hi.
So let me introduce myself. I'm Emmanuel Adigwe. I'm a result and growth-driven product designer with 5 years experience. In 2019, I led a product evolution at a bank in Nigeria, Globus Bank. It was majorly me designing the bank's first mobile banking application. Before Globus Bank, I was at Access Bank. I was part of a large team that served one of Africa's largest customer base. You know, sometimes when you design for a lot of people, it's frightening. So basically, that's me now. Right now, I work with CC Hub, the research and the R&D lab side of CC Hub. Our major focus is on public health, governance, and education. There are other things about me that I'd like to talk about. Like I said, my first name is Emmanuel. And what's so funny is this name has been pronounced differently. I figured out recently that all these different ways of pronouncing them are actually right. Some people say Emmanuel, some people say Emmanuel, some people say different things. I don't even know this time around. I just say Emmanuel. So whichever one is right for you. Like I said, I'm a designer. Second fun fact about me is I'm a noisemaker. So it means that I like to talk a lot. I like fun stuff. If you know me on Twitter, I probably just like a bit of chaos and violence when it comes up and just get on it. Third fun fact about me is I like table tennis. I play religiously every weekend. And should I say I'm aspiring to be a semi-pro? Because I've seen what the pros do. I'm like, nah, bro, you can't do that stuff. So let's just stick with semi-pro, right? So yeah, there are 3 fun things about me. So I'll talk about how today would go. What I've done is I've prepared some slides that, well, the content actually just makes it very easy for us. My hope is it becomes very easy for us to understand how to conduct usability tests, how to prepare for them, and how to send reports out to our teams once we conduct them. I try to use very simple language because I understand that this might be some of us first time of touching base on this type of research. So the agenda is you guys can see my screen, yes? I just want to confirm again.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So agenda for today, we'll first touch on, sorry, I'm using 2 screens, so you notice I'm looking away from my camera. So first agenda is we'll talk on why we need usability tests, and we move on to what usability tests are and what they are not. And the third part is we talk about when is the right time to conduct usability tests. Then we move on to the main bone of today, how to conduct usability tests. So I'll read this quote so we get a good fresher about what we're going to talk about. This is by Steve Krug. He says, as a user, I should never have to devote a millisecond of thought to whether things are clickable or not. This is really high standards for us. Right here, he's saying that users don't have to devote a millisecond. And the funny thing is you'll find that even right now, everyone on this call, we're users of different products. The moment we start to use products and we need to think about what something is or what something means on that product, it might not be a millisecond. We might have a threshold of 2 minutes or 1 minute, but at a particular point, you get tired because you don't want to think too much about this. If you don't know Steve Krug, you could pick up one of his interesting books, Don't Make Me Think. That's where this quote is taken from. So we start with why. With why, we'll talk about some funny usability issues that are out there. You'll be surprised what I'm going to show you today. The second part is statistics. A lot of statistics will show us that we really need to perform usability tests. We need to bring them into our flow. And well, there are loads of benefits. So the first one is usability issues that are out there. If you can see my screen now, you'll be shocked. You think I probably posted a picture of a magazine, but this is a website. Please don't be shocked. This is a website, and I think it's meant to be some form of Craigslist. Now, I can imagine the possibilities of usability issues that anyone using the site would do. They might end up finding what they need, but imagine the work they would have to go through to do such. So the next part, I would like us to predict some usability issues. So this image to the left, who can predict what the usability issue would be here? There's a potential usability issue around here. If you see where my mouse is, yeah, who would like to go? I think someone wants to go. There are no wrong or right answers. I just want you to make guesses. What do you think a user would have problem with on this image here to the left? Please feel free to say whatever is on your mind.
The drop down, I think, that's supposed to be state.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Impressive.
Also, the text fields look, when you hover over them, it's supposed to be interactive. It does not look like you can enter information.
So you're referring to the text labels, right? The labels of the text field.
No, the field itself, the placeholder.
Okay, yeah, the placeholders. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Did I pronounce your name correctly, Jare? Or Jari?
Yes, Jerry.
Okay, Jari. Okay, I didn't pronounce it well. Okay. One more suggestion, one more clue. Who would like to go? Please feel free to say anything. Okay, nobody's talking. Let's just move on. So just okay, Peace wants to say something.
I feel like when you fill in the text fields, then you kind of you're not really sure what went where exactly. Like there's no title to the form fields.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So the funny thing is, I think.
You hear me?
Okay, Esther, you want to say something? Okay, go on.
It says if shipping to a military post office, please select AAAE or AP as the shipping state. Oh, okay, I get it now.
Okay. Okay, that's great. That's actually great. So the funny thing is, I like what I just brought into Free is sometimes when we use products, we always ask this question. So when we use products, we always have this form of questions. Like even though the text is well written there, she had to read it to make sense of it, right? There was something that George pointed out that I really didn't even see when I was preparing this, is the state drop-down field. My impression would be states. I guess the question I'll just ask is this state? Then I'll look at the neighboring text field and realize that, okay, there's city and Z is most likely state, right? But the major potential issue that might happen here, and I think Jerry and Peace pointed that out, is the placeholders, right? Now, the funny thing about these placeholders is there are two possible scenarios that can happen here. If those placeholders don't have some form of interaction where they turn to text labels, text field labels, after you've imputed a value into the text field, if they don't turn into that, there'll be a problem over time, because when I impute data into the fields, I might not be sure where I placed in the first one. To be sure about that, I would need to probably delete what I've typed to check that. So a better approach would be, if they're going to stick with this design, maybe follow something similar to what material design does. where they have this affordability for placeholders like this to turn to text labels. Can we see the second image? The second image is meant to ask users to type in their phone numbers. And the amazing team behind this decided to go this route. Who would like this, to be honest? Like in this call right now, who would want to go this route?
That's very stressful.
You said?
That's very stressful. Why can't I just type it?
I'm telling you, it's probably the website to hell. If the worst is yet to come, because the worst is by the right-hand side, the bottom side. So you're meant to scroll and choose your phone number. So this part here, you're meant to use the slider and choose your phone number. I can imagine how long it would take for everyone to pick their phone numbers. The one on top says, so the one on top, yeah, is something we most likely come across every now and then, but we overlook because, well, our human minds try to make sense of this. But when you read the copy and you read the buttons, it really doesn't make any sense, because the question is, are you sure you want to remove the items in the trash permanently, right? And the button says, okay. Okay isn't really the answer to that. If you ask me, it's meant to be, yes, I want to remove. That way it's a lot easier for someone not to second guess and say, am I clicking the right button? You would even find that sometimes dialog boxes like this, we don't read the text. We just go straight to the buttons and try to make sense of what those buttons are. You would even find that the supporting button which says cancel could easily be, no, I don't want to remove. So that way it's a lot easier to make sense that, okay, this is yes, remove, no, don't remove, right? I don't need to even read so much about what the copy is. So we're going to the statistics. I'm just going to run through this real quick. The first one says 46% of people leave your website after getting an unclear picture of what your website does. My prediction here is some of us have had these experiences where we go to a website, it's got the best design, but we're not really sure what is happening here. And well, you just leave there because you don't want to start thinking for someone. The second one says that 7% people decide never to come back to a website because of poor design or bad navigation. And this is a really critical point because when you hear navigation, most people always think about the nav bar, and that's great. That's a good start. But the funny thing about navigation is when you really go in depth into navigation, you find navigation is just beyond the nav bar, because in its primary definition, it just means the ability for people to find their way around things, right? So if you can't find your way around things, if you have to always probably use their search field or make guesses, you want to enjoy your experience. So chances are you probably never go back to that website. You look for another option. Another one is 70% of small business websites don't have clear call to actions for anything on their home pages. And this is really funny because I know I've had these experiences before where there's an exciting product out there, they're just starting, you go to the landing page and you're like, okay, where do I sign up for updates? And the button is right there, but it's not clear enough, right? Or I want to sign up to be a user and the sign up button is almost nowhere to be found. And someone else points out for you and say, oh, it's over there. And you find that it's really small and not so clear. These are major issues, and this is why we're here. We're trying to use usability tests to try to remove a lot of these issues and make better products. We're going to talk about the benefits of practicing usability tests. So in case you have any questions, you can write them down or put them in the chat session. What we'll do is right after the session, we can discuss and I'll try to answer the questions. So loads of benefit. The first one, well, it saves you time and it saves you money. Let me explain this. So before I go into usability test, I'll just talk about a summary of it. So usability tests are meant to help you uncover usability problems. My impression is, and my understanding is if a user goes on the product and the experience is really bad because they can't use the product, what happens is they would leave it. And what that brings to a business is they lose customers. And imagine how much of money they will lose, right? They're not making profit over time. Also imagine if they later on discover this problem, it means that they have to make a lot of changes. And you also think about the hours that have been put into developing those products. Now that's a lot of waste of time when you think about that, because the developers and the people on that team will start to ask, why didn't we test this before we went live? I'll just go through other parts. It says is useful for getting user reactions and feedback about the product. Just like I said, usability test creates a better product for the market, improves retention rates. So imagine if you do your usability test right, and you're able to remove as enough and critical usability problems, the chances are your users will love your product and they will keep staying on the product. I just want to read what Jacob Nielsen said. It says, businesses that spend only 10% of their budget on usability improvements see on average a 135% increase in their desired metrics. So the return on investment on usability is significant. And I like this quote because as designers, sometimes we always have problem of stating our values, of stating that values of maybe processes we're taking. And what Jacob Nielsen here, who is a usability guru, what he's saying here is the ROI of usability is equal to 135% increase, right? And what that means is if I have, as a business, if I have a metric that I'm tracking and I'm saying one of my metrics should be maybe 30% growth, customer acquisition in a particular period, what that means is chances are if I get my usability issues right, I might even get ×3 of that, right? So that's what usability test does for us. I'll be moving to the next part, the what. So in this what, I'll be talking about what usability tests are, what they are not. When I'm talking about what they are not, it will be the common misconceptions people have of usability tests. And it's critical that we look at this so we don't mix it up. So Jacob Nielsen is saying here that the first rule of usability is don't listen to users, pay attention to what users do, pay attention to what users do, not what they say. So the common misconceptions, the first one, people would say usability tests is an interview or A/B testing. Let me put it to you that they are not. So first off, usability tests are not interviews. They're not A/B testing methods. These methods are totally different from usability tests. You need to know that first off, usability tests are, your approach to it should be observation as against having a conversation. When we get deep into this, you would understand more. The good thing about A/B tests is A/B tests allow you to test user preferences, maybe based on two options. Usability tests would help you test user behavior, majorly because during usability tests, you are observing people use your products. There's a misconception that usability test is really expensive. And the funny thing is this, before now, maybe we would say 4 years ago, we would say this was a legit concern. But now that we're in the age of digital tools or resources that make it possible for you to carry out remote usability tests or even conduct a usability test just via a Zoom call like this, you'll find that there aren't so many limiting factors anymore. It's a lot cheaper. You don't even have to think about location or equipment. You don't have to rent an office to do it. You could just set up on your phone and just do a voice call and have the other person record their screen while they use your product. People say it's time consuming. So just like I said, with the expensive parts, it's no longer time consuming because you can just set up real quick and conduct a 30 minutes usability test and get good data. Another myth is you must be a professional to conduct usability tests. I'm glad this is no longer valid. I'd like to use a similar analogy here. Well, we have chefs, right? And because chefs exist doesn't mean we shouldn't cook, right? It means we can also cook and we can do good stuff and we can always get better. And that's the idea that comes into usability tests, because in as much as you're a beginner, if you decide to use, for example, Maze is an online usability tool. If you decide to use that, Maze has a way of lecturing you. Maybe not lecture is the right word, but giving you some kind of learning tips while you're using the product, offering you different advice, because the product is designed for beginners that are trying to get into conducting usability tests. The beauty of it also is there's so many books out there and articles that can help you get started. So you don't have to be like a total pro, right? Obviously, we know the pros will do 110% work, but nothing hurts if you do 70%, 80% work. Usability tests should happen at the end of the project. Now, this is really chaotic and really bad, because what happens is when you start to do the usability tests at the end of projects, you incur a lot of cost for the team, because at that point, you're most likely going to find a lot of issues. And what that means is you might have scenarios where the team might have to redesign the entire product, or maybe the developers might have to rewrite their codes. So the advice here is you should take usability tests as an iterative process. You should test as early as possible. And I'm going to be talking about this later on. When is the right time to test, when we can test, and why we shouldn't wait to the end of a project to test. The sixth one is the more participants you have, the more you learn. And this, to be honest, is a constant debate in the design field, where a lot of people say, is 5 users really a good number? People say, why is this 5 users thing so popular, right? And some people say, no, it's not statistically right. You should have a lot of people. You should test with 20 people. But what you find is, because usability testing is qualitative, and what qualitative means is you're trying to find insights. You're not trying to prove anything, just like maybe a quantitative research would do. There's a funny part there is usability tests can also be quantitative, but they're mostly qualitative. So the first thing is you're finding insights. You're trying to find usability problems. And you should never aim to find all the problems, right? Because the sad part about that is you never really find all the problems. And that's one of the defense for people that say 5 is not enough, because they're like, 5 people won't find everything. One of the funny things is, over the years, when you start to, or over the few months, when you start to conduct usability tests, you'll find that a lot of the problems you would uncover, your team might not even be able to like treat all of them. You'll have to prioritize some and see the ones that are less costly to implement. So 5 is a good one. And the rule of thumb is, it's not just 5 in that sense. If you have a product, say for example, Uber, you work with Uber, and Uber has 2 user groups, the drivers and the other users, the ones that need the ride. What you can do in such a case is you can recruit close to 3 to 5 users per group. And the idea about this is, once you conduct that first step of testing, it's always best to retest after you've made those changes. And what you're doing is you want to see if those problems still persist. So 5 people, yes, but in other cases, you can do 5 users per user type, and also try to do it iteratively, where once you've tried to treat the problems that were discovered in the first time, right, you can go back again and do another round of usability tests to see if there are new problems or those problems that you tried to erase have gone. This was one thing. The 7th one is one thing that I had issues with when I first had usability tests. I made the same confusion. It says the myth is people think that usability testing is like user acceptance testing. And the funny thing is, they sound a lot alike because, well, there's user and user acceptance testing and there's testing there. And user acceptance testing sounds like a UX research method. But the funny thing is, it's really not, and they're not the same because with UATs, the thing about UATs is UATs try to find a way to see if the design meets the requirements of stakeholders or the design meets the requirements of the customers. The good thing about usability tests is usability test focuses on the user experience. It's not about whether the user interface you design meets business requirements. So they're totally different. Just like I said, the previous one, this myth says testing once is enough. Like I said, testing once is not enough. You should never have that belief that we've tested and that's it, right? You should keep testing and you should develop a culture where you can test regularly. The ninth one and the final one is usability testing alone is enough research. Although usability testing is a great method for uncovering usability problems, it's not enough research, right? Because there are a lot of other great research out there. There are even other research like diary studies that puts people into their actual area of context and find them in those particular situations where you can watch them, right, use products. Contextual inquiries also allow you to go to where people are comfortable and watch them while they use products. So there are a lot of other research methods. The good thing about usability testing is because you're right there and you're watching the person and you somehow, it's purposeful in the sense that what the person is performing at that point in time are directed by you, the facilitator, because you're interested in those areas. You have a goal and you want to see if, for example, your checkout page or your checkout experience is good enough. Moving on to the next slide. So before we go into what usability testing is, we'll talk about usability, utility, and usefulness. So let's talk about what usability is. It's very simple. Usability is how easy user interfaces are to use. So we're looking at, is it pleasant or is it easy? The features you have on them, is it so pleasant for people to use them? Is it pleasant for people to perform tasks on your product? Utility says, does it do what users need? It really just goes into, does it provide the features that people need? Will I see a feature on your product and can it do what I need it to do? For a product to be considered usable, it needs to have these 5 quality components. The first one is learnability. Learnability speaks to how easy it is for users to accomplish basic tasks, right? For the first time. So imagine you download an app, for example, and the very first time you open the app, the question is how easy it is for you to sign up or maybe transfer money. That's learnability because it's your first time. So you're learning the platform and you're seeing, oh, okay. So how quick and how easy it is for me to get my way around things. The second one is efficiency. So now that I've learned the design, how quick can I perform the set tasks that I want to do? Say it's a banking app, for example. How quick can I transfer money? Would you require me to go through so many screens and wait for too long for something to happen? Memorability. Memorability speaks to me returning to a design, having left it for a while, and being able to re-register what I know about the product. Imagine if you seldomly use a product, maybe an emergency product, for example, and you get back to the product maybe after 2 months, and you still have to relearn that product. It's a lot of problem, right, for you as a user. The fourth one being errors. So this is really critical, right? Because clearly we can't really say we can avoid all errors. But the question is, how many errors do users make? How severe are these errors, right? How easily have we made it for them to recover from errors? The fifth one being satisfaction. So satisfaction, just like usability, the whole of it is how pleasant is it to use the design? If you bring all these 5 components together and they're well met, it means your product is usable, is very well usable. And the funny thing about that is usability when added with utility means your product is very useful. Because if your product is easy to use and it allows users to do what they want to do, I'll find it very useful. It'll be very difficult for me to find an alternative to such a product. Now let's move on to the definition of usability testing. Usability testing, right in its definition, is usability testing is all about getting real people to interact with a website, app, or other product you've built and observing their behavior and reactions to it. Let me just put it in simple terms. Usability testing is you watching people use your product, right? So you built a product and you want to be sure before we go live or if we've gone live. So when I say go live, I mean the product is out there in the market. So before we go live or we've gone live, I want to be sure how people use this product. Will it be difficult for them? That's what usability test does for you. It gives you that privilege to see how people use your product. The fun thing about usability tests is you get to find that the way you design your product, people tend to use it differently. And it's not a bad thing. It just means that people have found other ways to obtain the definition. And you notice here, the lady is intended to be the participant and the man on the left is meant to be the facilitator. And there's something she's doing right here, which we'll talk about later on. We call it, in usability testing, we call it the think out loud protocol. And what she's doing is she's just stating what her thoughts are, what she's seeing and what she's feeling. She's saying the first thing that catches my eye is the section here. So she's probably on the website and she's speaking out loud that, okay, I can see this and I can see that. What that helps us to do as facilitators is once we have participants think out loud, we're giving a snapshot into their thought process, what they can see and if they're experiencing any difficulties. You don't want, sorry if my internet is not stable. You don't want your usability test session to just be task oriented. You don't want to just go into usability test and say, do this, and the participant just clicks, right? You want to know what they're experiencing. You want to know if they have second guesses. I remember one of my usability sessions that I conducted recently, one of the participants had issues with clicking a button. She wasn't sure if the copy was so great. We thought we had done a good copy for the button, and she had to ask the question. She's like, should she click this or not, right? Well, I gave a different kind of reply that I will also talk about later on, because usability tests are a lot different from usual conversations you have. So don't worry, I'll keep that for later on when we get there. So the three major types of usability testing methods. At this point, I don't want this to feel like a lot of load on you guys, all right? So I'll try to really go slowly and explain these things. So the three major types of methods. The first one is moderated in person. The second one is moderated remote. And the third one is unmoderated remote. And what really differentiates all of these three is location and the presence of the facilitator. The first one, just like it sounds, it says the facilitator is collocated, well, that's a difficult word, is collocated with the participants in a testing room and lab. So with moderated and in-person, you have the facilitator and the participant in the same physical space. Moderated remote, just like it sounds, the participant and the facilitator are in two different places, but they are communicating through some maybe video sharing technology. Unmoderated is totally different. Yes, facilitator and participant are in two different locations. The thing is, the only difference is the facilitator is not observing. So one of the benefits of trying out moderated in-person sessions is you can observe the participants' body language and facial expressions. Because you're right there with them, you can see their body movements, you can see they're hesitant to do stuff. We moderated remote, observing their reactions might be limited because you probably won't be able to see their entire body. They might be maybe shaking their legs or moving their leg out of anger. We unmoderated, it's a maybe, right? In most cases, some of these sessions might not be recorded. Recorded in the sense that you might not get a video recording of the participant. So let me really explain what unmoderated remote sessions are. So think about now that we have COVID around and it's so difficult for you to go out there to talk to people face to face. Chances are if the person talks to you and they're a few meters away from you, you might get COVID if they do, right? So you decide to go a route of using a usability testing software like Maze Design that I talked about. What happens is with Maze, you create your entire usability sessions. You lay out the scenarios and you assign them to the screens. And what Maze does for you is after you've picked your participants or you send the links out, the users can then conduct the sessions right there on Maze. You will not be active at that time when the participant is trying out your software. So there are chances that, well, if you don't tell the user to record themselves while they're doing it, the only recording you get is their mouse movement on your platform. One critical thing is there's a low risk of cheating and unmotivated participants in moderated in-persons. So what this means is like unlike unmoderated remote where you have a high risk. What this means is because you're there are chances that, well, your participants won't go on and Google something or check how something is done and act like they're super good at using your product, because sometimes people can be really biased with how they use your product. A lot of people would not like to come out as, oh my God, you can't use a basic product. So imagine if they're not being observed and you're not facilitating right there. The chances that the person might try to cheat and maybe come out and look like, oh, we completed the task in record seconds and all that. So that's for the methods. We'll move to when. When speaks about the right time to conduct usability tests. And from this, you will find that, I don't know how to say this, but every time is the right time to conduct it. Because if at every point you conduct usability tests, you can find or uncover problems. It means that you can remove those problems from your product and you can avoid some bad things that will probably happen as a result of those products existing on those problems existing on your product. So we'll take the different, should I say, prototype stages. For example, say you're testing sketches. So I don't know if most of us do this. There are chances that some of us don't, but it's totally fine. But there's sometimes when we're working on a product and we don't want to jump into our design tools and start to click and drop shapes. So you probably start with paper or a napkin and you start laying out your layout or the structure that you have in mind. Obviously, it won't be detailed. But the fear about that is for most designers, and it's really interesting because we designers, we don't like to show not finished products. We like perfection. So you find a lot of designers might not be comfortable with conducting usability tests with their sketches because they're like, no, I don't want to show this. Like this will mean nothing to the person. And the good thing about this is sketches at this point in time, they're not full usability tests, right? You're not going to try to ask someone to make a lot of sense from boxes and circles that you scribbled on paper. The objective of this is for you to try to ask the participant to figure out what the sketch is about. It's just very simple. And if you notice, I said each one will probably last less than 5 minutes. So imagine you're outside or you're in the office and you sketch something out on a paper. You can take it to a friend right there in your office and say, what do you think this is about? And one of the funny things is, in as much as you think you can test sketches, is you'll find that people start to say a lot of things. They'll say, oh, this looks like a payment page. This looks like this. So one thing you can do is if you test this with maybe like 3-4 people, or if you decide to go a larger number like 8, you can actually now tell if what you're designing looks like what you intend it to be. Imagine if you're designing for maybe a religious site and you're testing on Sketch, and you're like, what do you think this is? And people are saying, oh, this looks like a porn site. You already know you're not designing for church, right? You know you're designing for porn sites. So you need to change the direction. The critical thing at this point is don't ask users. Sorry guys. Let me just end this. Sorry about that. I just need to turn this off. So the most important part about testing sketches is, like I said, don't ask people about their opinions. And the good thing about this is you should never even try this at any stage of usability testing. Don't ever ask people, do you like this? Do you want this? Because what you find is, I need to just turn off my phone. What you find is people are not good judges of what their choices in the future. If any of you have worked in marketing, for me, I worked in marketing for a year while I was at the bank. And one of the things you would find is people will make promises and say, oh, if you build this product, if you do this, if you add maybe 35% to your banking accounts and stuff and the features, we will save with you, we'll use your product. What that just means is the idea of that is really good for them. They like that idea. But you might just launch that, and how is this happening? Sorry, guys. Sorry, I'm just trying to. So the sad thing is my laptop is connected to the internet and it's an iMessage call. I'm so sorry about that. So the second phase is testing wireframes. So at this point, when you're testing wireframes, unlike sketches, so wireframes might be a lot more detailed than sketches, because with wireframes, you have boxes and, well, if you want to maybe show an image, you can indicate with maybe a shape and a circle. So if you're testing with people, they can tell that, oh, this is an image, right? So at this point, what you most likely will be testing will be more detailed than sketches, because your test will be more navigation related. So what that means is you probably just put a lot of these wireframes on ground, and you could say, for example, you are designing an e-commerce platform. You could tell the user, so the idea is you have these wireframes all laid out. You could tell the user that how would you find, say, for example, the shopping cart from the homepage, and you point to the homepage wireframe design. So what you want to observe at that point is the user telling you that, oh, I can see this section here that should be a button. I think I'll click on this and I'll get there, right? So you want to be sure if, for example, you've named your labels correctly or some form of categorization naming is correct. So it's really good for checking out your navigation. The other phases are, and this is something that people always ignore, and for many reasons, you find that some designers are least interested in this, because it means that if I'm going to be testing my competitor's product, why are we not just testing our product? What do we do with the information we've gotten from our customers' product? Do we give it to them? We don't work for them after all, right? But the good thing is you can test your competitor's product. One thing you can get out of this is you're learning from what others have done. Imagine you're just starting out as a product company and you're not sure the direction to go. You've seen that maybe 3 of your competitors have tried this out and you want to see if it presents a good usability chance, right? So what you can do at this point is you can have participants run through maybe 2 of your competitors or 3 of your competitors, and you can learn what works and what doesn't work. And you can take this back to inform your own existing product or your new product you're about to build. And the fun thing about this is you can test as many competitor products in that session. when you want to test existing products, sorry about the typo there. When you want to test about existing products, and I'm going to be going into much detail. This is what I'm going to really talking about today. Testing existing products, testing prototypes. It's an opportunity for you to fix your worst problems. You don't want to go out there in the market, or you don't want to remain in the market with something that is causing a lot of churn, that is sending a lot of your customers away from your product. You don't want to do that. So we'll be going into much details with regards testing existing products and testing prototypes. So to go into how, I would like to read this quote by Paul. It says, usability test, it was more an interview. It says, usability test is about catching customers in the act and providing highly relevant and highly contextual information. And just like we've been saying beforehand, is you're watching people use your product. And what this does for you is it gives you a lot of information about what's wrong and what's not wrong. So I want to do something here. Before we go into the how, I would like to know if anyone has a question, because we're about to go into a very critical part of today's session where we're going to talk about what usability tests really are. And it gets more broad and deeper than we've been discussing a few minutes ago. So if you have any question, I'd like you to ask now.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Does anyone have a question?
Can you hear me? Good afternoon. Hello.
Sorry. Hello, hi, sorry.
Why he can't hear you?
I can hear you now, sorry. Go on.
Okay, you talked about the methods of usability testing. That's the moderated in-person, moderated remote, and unmoderated remote. Yes. So my question here is, which method is best to use?
What method
is bestly used? Which one should we use? Like, which one is best in the three types?
I like your question so well, because I think I've heard people ask this question several times. And you know, the funny thing about it is there's no best method, mainly because out of the three, you're going to choose this method based on the situation you find yourself. So say, for example, imagine if, like, look at right now, there's COVID, right? Most people would not do, remember when we were in lockdown, and imagine if you had a research project to do at that time, your best and go-to method would have been maybe a remote session, either moderated or unmoderated, right? There are also chances that you don't have a physical office, and to conduct this, you would probably have to rent a space, or maybe go to a restaurant or a coffee shop and have to maybe buy some time and all that. So you probably be thinking a remote style. Or there could also be a situation where you have a physical office, you're an employee of a company that there's a space for that already. You have the equipment to run this. And you'd like to see people's reactions while they're there. Your go-to plan would be moderated in-person session. So what I would advise and give an answer to, the short answer is, it depends on the situation you find yourself. It also depends on the resources you have available to you. And it depends on how in-depth you want to go into the research. So if you don't mind losing maybe quality facial expressions and body movements, you could go the remote style. One thing that I found that can work for you in unmoderated remote that I've been trying to hack is, in as much as maybe some online remote testing tool might not afford the user to record themselves, you could reach out to the participants via mail and ask that they record themselves, knowing fully well that the online testing platform is recording them, like the screen movement and their mouse movement and all that. So what you're doing is you're getting 2 recordings per user. The side effect of that is some people might not record themselves so well. They might not have the right or very good cameras to do that. So it's a sketchy thing. So thank you very much for that question. Who else has a question?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, when you were talking about the misconceptions about usability testing, you mentioned user acceptance tests.
Yes.
Acceptance testing. Yes, please. What's that?
Okay, so user acceptance, what product teams do. You mostly find this a lot with business teams and development teams. So say, for example, the product has been coded, has been designed and coded, right? So what they do is they will have some form of quality assurance where they're checking to see, okay, one of the requirements we said was this product, you should be able to transfer money, right? So they will test and see, okay, can we transfer money? Did we put this feature in there? We said users should be, one of the user stories is users should be able to edit their profile. They check all of that. So that's what user acceptance test is. And sometimes these are conducted with actual maybe customers or users. They come in and the user will be like, oh, okay, oh, this feature is good. Or the scenarios, I remember this when I was at the bank, is you might be designing a specific product for a business, like a customer. And once you're done, you take it to the customer, you're like, sir, so is this how your workflow is right now? Is this what you guys want? And they say, no, this is not what we want. Okay, can you put this here? Can you put that here? And the problem with that is because it's a culture that business teams are used to, right? Whenever we talk as designers, talk about this usability test, they think that's what we're referring to. So they try to pitch it and say, oh, let's take it to the owner of the business and let's hear if he likes it. No, this is not to check whether the person likes it or it meets what their requirements are. This is to watch people use the product and uncover any usability problems or user experience problems. Thank you, Anu, for that question. Is there any other question? Okay, so let's move to the how. I tried not to make it bulky because like this is the most important part of today's session. So we'll be taking it one by one. The planning phase, the recruitment and preparation phase, and the main meat, which is conducting the usability test, and what happens afterwards, analysis and reporting. So the planning phase is where you as a designer and the rest of your team start to ask questions that, what are the goals we want to achieve in this session, right? What is the scope of why we're doing this? Do we want to test all of our features? Why should we test all of our features? What is important to us? And one of the ways you can find answers to that is having meetings with stakeholders. Stakeholders are your bosses or other people that are involved in the project. You could even go as far as meeting maybe customer support and say, what are the common issues we have? What are the common issues we have in the company? What are those common calls customers call for? And before I go further, I would like to state this. As a designer, if you work in an enterprise association that has a customer support, and one of the things you struggle with is conducting research or getting enough time to conduct research, you're quite lucky because what you have there is a team that can provide you with good enough research data, right? If you collaborate enough with your customer support, think about it, when the company talks to the customers more, if not the customer support team, right? So what they can do is they can give you what the common complaints are or what the common good things are, right? So at this point, you want to find those goals. And one thing that's critical is don't commit to too many goals, because what this happens is when you commit to too many goals, the first thing is you tend to have so many scenarios and your sessions might be too long for a user. You don't want your user to get to a point where they're tired and they're no longer motivated to continue. Another thing is too many goals means too many scenarios, and it also means that you're most likely going to uncover so many problems that your team might not be able to solve. In as much as the goal is to uncover problems, the truth about it is we get to points where as a team, we need to prioritize the issues we discover during these sessions and say, what can we do now? What can we turn into a project in the future? And what should we discard, right? The third one says, at this point, you're trying to determine the format and the setting. And just like the question that was asked before, should it be moderate? Should it be remote? Should it be in person? Or should it be unmoderated? And this is the point you start to ask that question, and you look at what resources you have available to yourself and say, what's the best method to try out? When you're trying out this method, it also defines what location, what time, what are your equipment that you'll be needing to conduct the test. Another good thing that you need to figure out at this point is the length of your sessions. I haven't conducted 1 hour sessions. I like to keep them within 45 minutes because 45 minutes seems like a good sell to participants and they feel motivated. And there are times when we move beyond 45 minutes, maybe just some small time, 50 minutes, because the chances that the participant might attend late and we have another session after that session. So what's the best thing to do is when you're setting time, say for example, you plan to do like 1 hour for your sessions, right? Try to create time, enough time between sessions, right? Because your time your sessions might run over, or you might also, even if your sessions don't run over, it'll be good for you to somewhat synthesize what you've learned, right? In as much as in usability testing is a good culture to record your sessions, right? It's also a good culture to maybe take notes. The notes are you making sense of what you're seeing and just jotting those things down. So you might want to synthesize with maybe your partner that was observing during the first session before you start the next session. So it's good to always leave time between sessions. You might also want to ask how many users do we want for this test? What user group are we focusing on? My prediction would be that I don't think Uber does usability sessions for all their user groups. There's sometimes that there's a particular problem, maybe the driver app, right? That session will just be for the driver. So you want to decide and say, what users are we focusing on and what groups are we? If we're looking at users, how many of them, right? What is our budget? And this is a really important part of usability tests, right? Because you're going to be asking people, the people in this scenario are participants. You're going to be asking them to borrow their time and come in and conduct this for 1 hour, 45 minutes. You need to be able to incentivize them for their time. You need to be able to compensate them and say thank you. And the compensation is not thank you with words. It's not that Eshegoni, thank you for your time. No, it is as simple as money should be the compensation. It shouldn't be 50 naira. It should be something that is substantial that will make them happy, right? Because they gave you their time. Another thing about budget is you're asking what tools should you use. Say for example, you want to record your screen. You're going to be asking, should I use Camtasia? If it is going to be a remote call, what tool will I use? Is it free? If it's not free, should we pay? So these are the kind of things you're thinking about, so you're well prepared for it. The final part that is really critical is you have to decide what metrics you wish to measure. Why this is important is when we conduct usability tests, I want to use very simple terms. There are some things we look out for, right? And it can either be in form of numbers or observations. In numbers, it could be time to complete task, right? Which is a very critical metric in usability tests. You want to see how long it took for participants to complete their task. Maybe success rate. What is the rate of participants completing their task successfully, right? And these are quantitative figures. You could also want to look for the qualitative figures and say, maybe after conducting a usability test, you could run a survey with the participants, a very quick survey that asks them about their satisfaction level, was it pleasant to use the product and all that. Or you could also, through your observation, see that, oh, okay, he really struggled with, the participant really struggled with this product. You jot that down and you do stuff. Or the funny thing about usability tests that I have noticed also is while people are using your product, you as the designer, we start to see some issues. I remember there was this usability test that I conducted, I think it was 2 months ago. And a user was using, a participant was using the product. And I saw something that for some weird reason, I don't know, it's like we just forgot to work on. And I'm just looking like, no, don't go there, please. Don't go there, don't go there, right? And this was me saying in my mind, I didn't say it out loud. So you could also notice those flaws in your product yourself. And well, you just impute that. Those are the kind of things you want to ask, like, what am I looking for? What am I trying to measure? Because imagine you're conducting usability tests without measuring anything. Then what's the purpose of conducting that? You want to be able to come out of usability test and say, this is what happened during the test. We found that this is also a number of people could not conduct this. We found that this, that, and that, right? So a very critical part of usability tests. We move on to recruitment. Now, the funny thing about recruitment is, as difficult as it is to find jobs, it's also difficult to recruit participants for usability tests, because this is the one part that is not a technical skill for designers. It's more like a people skill and being able to sort out for people, like using your network or whatever resources you have available. So one of the methods you can do is, you're a company, you might have an existing product, and you could go to your analytics or your development team, whoever is in charge of analytics, and check who your frequent users are. And you can also check who your non-frequent users are. It'll be good to test with people that don't use your product so well. And the other edge case, right? Another method is you can recruit through online services. User testing is one example. User testing affords you the opportunity to make payments for this service, and they will recruit participants for you. One thing you can do is you can write the conditions for participants, maybe choose some demographics and some other usage behavior, so that it will be good for them to filter and choose the right participants for you. The third one is something that I like very well, because I don't know, I just like this method, because sometimes procrastination can be a bad thing when you're planning, right? So I've done things where, I remember one time I was trying to redesign a cinematic experience, and I just went to the cinema and I designed something, and I just met people there that were waiting to see a movie, and asked them for a few moments of their time, and just ran a quick usability test session at the corner of the hall while they were waiting. While this is good, is the first thing where this is good is if you can find a place where you can test with people that represent your actual users, it's a good practice, right? Because if you look at my scenario, I went to a cinema, and the actual users are people that see movies, right? Because the cinematic experience. The tricky part is you don't just want to walk into a mall and say you're designing an app for designers, for example. Like, imagine you're part of the Figma team. You don't just want to go to a hall and give somebody, imagine you're part of the Figma team. You don't want to go to a hall and just give someone selling meat that they should test Figma. Tickets. I can imagine the response the person will give to you. Imagine Eleron giving Eleron to test Figma and giving Eleron mouse. Funny stuff will happen. The fourth part is recruiting on your own from a wider population. So I've tried this before. It wasn't so successful because I don't have like a popular reach to people like through my social media networks. So you could say, for example, you have Twitter, right? Or you're part of an online community, maybe Figma Africa on Slack. You could go out there and just tweet and say you're looking for participants, blah, blah, this and that, and find people that would participate. The final one is, and this is really good culture for, the final one is really good culture for people that like to continuously practice usability tests. And I do this a lot, right? Is to recruit loosely and grade on a curve. What this essentially means, I know it sounds like a lot of language, right? Let me explain it gently. So recruiting loosely means that, so let me go back to when you're not recruiting loosely. Most of the time you find an argument that says, always recruit your target users, or worst case, recruit people that represent them. Because when you recruit your actual users, they have a domain knowledge, like they're very domain knowledge in the sense that they know what your product is about. Imagine you're designing a car, an online car shopping app where people can buy cars and stuff. You most likely will, the first thing that comes to your mind is you want to look for people that drive, right? So those are the people that you want to test with. Or you're designing some other tool, right, that seems to seek for some knowledge about what that tool does. People would say, why not test the people that know stuff about this? Well, you would find, which is funny, is most usability problems have nothing to do with domain knowledge. That's what I found after conducting usability tests, is you find that you start to see usability issues like the navigation was not great, the layout was not great, our button was not so clear, we didn't really think about accessibility. Why did we use that color on that button? Right? Because the problems is you see that maybe someone can't even find your call to action button, or can't even find, maybe the task is around them placing items in their cart. They can't even find where the cart is. They can't even find where that link or button is to place an item. And what you find is that those problems are not even domain specific problems. They're layout problems. They're UI interface problems. So you find that the argument for target users might not really hold so much, in as much as it's important. If you can find a situation where you can give allowance for differences between your actual users and not represent maybe non-actual users. Let me explain that. So imagine you conduct a test, like maybe a gorilla test, for example, and you just walk up, say, for example, you're designing a product, like we said in the car shopping app product, right? You're designing that, and you know, one good thing about such a product is, in as much as your target audience will be people that drive, the chances that someone that wants to learn how to drive is about to finish training, their driving school, might want to buy cars on your platform. So imagine if you use terminologies that maybe people that don't drive a lot, or maybe you're selling trucks. They didn't drive a lot of trucks, don't know. It just means that a newbie on your platform will not be able to understand that. So let me now go back to the part where I say create allowances for some form of differences between actual users and non-actual users. What that means is, say, for example, you now design with this newbie that doesn't drive cars as much as your main target audience. What you can do is, while you're observing and you notice a usability problem, you can ask yourself and say, wait, was this problem because this participant is not familiar with the terminology we use there, or they're not familiar with some of the jargon in this field? Or is this the kind of problem that our own major target users would have? So when you start to think about this, you're creating that allowance for this difference, right? And it becomes clear to you if the usability problem is a domain knowledge specific issue, or it's some interface problems, right? So yes, recruit your actual users, but in cases when you cannot, recruit loosely and grade on a curve. There's a critical part of recruitment, and it's because you don't want to recruit the wrong people. So there's this thing about, because you're going to compensate people, right? Say, for example, you're going to do a usability test and you're going to give them $50 Amazon gift card, or you're going to buy them credit of 5,000 Naira or something, or you're going to give them 5,000 Naira or 10,000 Naira. Now, because they've seen, imagine you throw an ad out there online or social media, and you're like, you need to conduct a usability session on blah, blah, blah. You probably won't even give out why you're conducting the usability session. And you say at the end that compensation is this amount, like 10,000. What will happen is, remember our giveaway culture. Somebody will just sit and be like, nice, oh, they're nice. They'll click on it. And imagine if you're screening, if your questions, for example, are leading in the sense that, imagine you want to conduct a usability test session for people that use maybe Apple Health on their phone. Maybe you're working for Apple, right? And your first question is, do you use Apple Health? Yes or no? Everybody that is hungry to get money would know that the answer for that is yes, right? And what that means is that the moment you click yes, and imagine the following questions that follow your screeners are questions that are leading people and giving your participants, your intended participants, clues about what the session is. You're most likely going to recruit the wrong people, and these people are motivated by money. So what will happen is they might just fake knowledge, and you're going to get biased data during your sessions. So what you want to do is, one of the good practices is your first question should be a very good disqualifier, right? In as much as a good disqualifier, it shouldn't lead users. It should be something that, so imagine if like this scenario, Apple Health, right? You could ask a question that talks about how they record their fitness data, right? And you can now give options of fitness apps out there. Now, what that does is, well, I don't think anybody will be too smart to know that it's Apple Health that you're doing. You could place Apple Health in the middle, or not even the middle, you just place it somewhere so close to the middle. And you have options like Samsung Health, I think that's what it's called, Google Fit and the likes, right? Nike Run Club. And what happens is you're not giving out a clue what product you're designing for, right? So imagine if people click other apps and your intention is to check for Apple Health. You're only going to pick the people that chose Apple Health. And it means that that first one has helped you to filter a large number of people. Like I said, don't ask leading questions. One good thing again is to limit the number of open-ended questions you have. Open-ended questions in screeners are good because you're not giving options, right? So it means that the participant is trying to game the person taking the quiz, that's trying to game your quiz. Imagine if they don't see options. It'd be very difficult for them to know what to answer, right? So you might even choose your disqualifier question as an open-ended question, just so that they don't have that privilege to make random guesses so they get the compensation that comes with it. But what you want to do is you want to limit the open-ended questions, because imagine all your questions are open-ended and they're 5, and I've written like testimony number 1, I've written number 2, I've written so many, 3 lines. At a point, even though I might be the target user, I might just get tired. Like, what is this? Check me essay in me or something. You get, so you don't want that to happen. Like I said, avoid giving away the profile you're targeting. Last one is screen out employees of competing companies and study sponsors employee. So this is very critical, right? To be honest, I remember when I started out doing usability testing, that was my first banking job. I didn't know a lot about this and I didn't think about this. And just thinking about it now, it's really important. Imagine you have a really competitive market and your competitors know that, see these guys, they are conducting usability tests. Let's go and check whether their new product is they're about to launch. So let's just answer the screener. You want to find a way to ask questions that can filter those kind of people out. Also, you don't want to conduct usability tests with people in the office. Chances are those people are involved in the product. They were part of the team that built the product. You don't want to do that, right? So because once you start to do that, you're introducing a lot of bias into your study. One other critical part is creating effective task scenarios. Now, this is, I believe this is the first time we're talking about task scenarios. So the way usability tests work is you have so I'm talking about in-person tests, right? You have a participant in a room with you, and it works like this. You give them, or you read out some scenarios, and these scenarios will try to mimic the real world, right? And you read out the scenarios and say, do this, do that. They finish that. That's the first scenario. The second scenario, you read it out on and on till you're done with all your scenarios. Now, it's really important that you develop the skill of writing out effective scenarios. I won't lie to you, this is one of the most difficult parts in usability test. It is one of the parts that can mess up your entire usability test. Even after 2 years of conducting usability tests, I still make a lot of mistakes. Like, I remember I conducted one recently where my scenario was really long. I don't know why I made it long like that. And I remember reading out for the first participant, and he was like, sorry, can you read that again? I don't understand. And I had to find another way of explaining the scenario to the participant. So the first rule of thumb is if you have to explain a scenario to a participant, that scenario is not good enough. So what I just did was, after that session, I rewarded the scenario to be shorter and to be clearer than it previously was. And it was a lot better for the sessions that followed. So just to talk about what we have on the slide, effective scenarios should be realistic. And I'm going to explain what that is and give an example. So you should try to focus your scenarios on outcomes that your users will be motivated by. So imagine if your product is a banking or an online shopping app, right? So I like online shopping products. And your scenario is, imagine you just wrote out a scenario, and the scenario is log into, maybe the name of your platform is ajebota.com. Log into ajebota.com and tell me what you would do. Now, that's not realistic. I don't think anybody would go out there and use products and go to jumia.com and tell somebody that is sitting next to them, and do you know I'm about to buy a laptop? And that's all they do. And the laptop has been bought. Nobody does that. So you try to create something that is realistic and is actionable, because such a scenario is not even actionable, right? Because what happens at that point is they're not conducting any other action except just clicking on the URL and telling you what they're about to do. So an actionable scenario in this case would be, say, like the cinema experience I was talking about. A poor scenario that is not actionable would be, let me read out the scenario. You want to see a movie on Sunday afternoon. Go to silverbed.com and tell me what you click next, right? A better actionable task would be use silverbed.com to find a movie you're interested in seeing on Saturday afternoon, right? So if you notice the difference, the first task that I read out is saying that the user should just only go to the website and not carry out any action, right? And just tell you what they're about to do. The second one is saying that they should use that platform to find the movie that they would have told you they're interested in finding or seeing, sorry. They would now use that platform to book a time to see the movie and buy a ticket. And what that does for you is you'll be able to observe them, right, using the platform at that point in time. Another thing is try not to instruct people to use the interface in a way that your task scenario is giving clues about parts of the interface. So I remember there was this one time we're working on a product and I actually made a very bad mistake. I remember after such tests, I was like, oh my God, I've biased this data. So on one of our buttons, the label was search for opportunities, right? And in my task scenarios, I said, it read something like, you are this, that. Sorry, I'm using this, because I don't want to leave out information on product. You're this, that, and you're interested in finding this. Use the platform to find opportunities, right? And what happened is almost everybody that was participating just went straight to our find opportunities button and just clicked on it. And what I had done there was I led people and I biased the data, right? What you try to do there is try to reward your task scenario, not to give off that part of your interface. Because the moment you start doing that, you're leading people to say, it's almost as though you're saying, see, just click that button and let's see what happens after, right? Another thing you want to do is your scenarios should be clear. You want to use simple language. You don't want to use some form of technical terms, right? Except you're conducting So the funny thing is, even when you're conducting usability tests with experts, for example, the funny thing about technical terms is there's a limit to technical terms that some experts might know or some professionals might know, for example. And imagine you use that technical term. They might be like, what? What do you mean by that? So you don't want to have to rephrase. Try to use very clear terms so it's easier for them to make sense of the scenario and try and carry out the task that you've given to them. There's my mouse. Okay. So the other tips for preparation. Why I'm going in depth to this preparation part is really important in the sense that if you don't get preparation right, it will really affect your sessions poorly. One tip is try to send out the invite to your selected participant on time. This invite should include what you expect from them. It could also include a summary of what the session is about and what they'll be doing. What this just does is it prepares them so they know what they're coming to do. One good rule of thumb also is if you're going to be recording the session, which I'll advise you do, because recording sessions allow you to observe as against taking notes and trying to struggle between taking notes and observing. So if you're going to be recording, you most likely will want to include, so I do this a lot where I include their consent form in the mail and tell them to read the consent form before they come over. And they sign the consent form when they come over. What I've noticed is this helps save time because I remember there was a time I didn't used to include that in my mails and the participants would come over and we spend a lot of time reading out the consent form and explaining some things to the participant, and you notice like maybe 10 to 20 minutes have been used up. So it might be a good practice to include the consent form or any other required information in the mail so they're prepared before they come. It could even mean that when they read the consent form, they could just say, oh no, I don't want to do this, right? And they've stated clearly what they don't want. And if you're okay with that, you can invite them over. There's a tip here that I didn't include here, and it's a good recruitment technique. Say, for example, you want to recruit 5 people, right? Or 4 people in this case. Now, for every 4 persons, add 1 more person. And why that's important is some people might not show up, right? So if you want to conduct with 4 people, you might even go as far as sending invites to 6 people, right? If all 6 people show up, well, nothing spoil, right? One other thing you can do is you can also, to avoid, say for example, in as when I said nothing spoil, sometimes something can spoil. Because what if your budget is for 5 people to compensate them, or your budget is for 4 people in this case? So what you can do is the 5th and 6th persons, you could put their time to maybe be like the following day, right? So imagine if all 4 people show up, it just means that you can inform the other 2 people that are meant to show up the following day that, well, they are not needed at this time. You try to be pleasant, like you try to not sound very harsh. You probably just say you can invite them for other sessions, but not this one. I wouldn't advise you to do this, but sometimes I compensate them for maybe that sometimes people even show up and I forgot to send them the mail not to show up. So I just compensate them for showing up and the trouble of the transport and all that. The second preparation tip is it is very important to invite stakeholders to observe. The reason why is there is nothing more, let me just read what I have here. There's nothing more convincing than witnessing how users respond to the interface design. Now, I remember when I started with usability tests, I would just enter a room with participants and just conduct it and do it. And I'll go back to the rest of the team, which consists of developers, the product managers, project manager. And I'll tell them that I conducted this and I did this, and this is the report. Now, the hard thing about that is because they were not the process or the sessions, you have to sell what you've just done to them, even though there was a sign off, right? Even though there was a sign off that let's do this, but you still have to sell and say, guys, this part of our product is not working fine. Let's try and fix that. But imagine if maybe key representatives of each team, it doesn't have to be everyone because people are working, right? But key representatives of each team are present during these sessions and they're observing and they're taking notes. Now, what that does is, and I like how Erica Hall puts it in her book, Just Enough Research, is when you engage people in your research, right? And when they are part of your research, they feel like they're the major part. They feel like they were even the ones that conducted the research. So what you find after the end of some research is these people become evangelists of conducting usability tests. They become evangelists of, well, we really need to make this work because my God, see what I witnessed there. Our product that we thought was successful is not even that great. Like everyone, there was this client that almost messed up our keyboard because our product was not great. So stuff like, because they witnessed that, it's a lot easier for them to sell these required changes for you. So I'm checking the time just to be sure. Wow, used a lot of time. A good way to know if your tasks are understandable is you should do a dry run. And I would advise you do it, especially seeing as most of us here might have not conducted this, right? So if it's your first time, you're getting nervous, you're not sure if you have everything prepared, you could conduct a dry run. And a good practice is, well, you can conduct to your friend, you could conduct to someone in the office. And what they will just do is they will act the role of the participant, you can act the role of the facilitator. What that also does as a side, trying to ease off your nervousness, is you can check if your task scenarios are well written, right? Imagine if you write a scenario and your colleague is asking you, what does this mean? It just means that chances are a participant will most likely ask you that. So you want to rework that and change the scenario. So we're going into the myth of it, which is actually conducting the usability test. So every usability test will always start with an introduction. And why this is critical is at this point, you're trying to first off break the ice. Breaking the ice is really important because in your mail, you most likely must have used usability test, and you most likely even explained that you're not testing the participant, you're testing your design, but people might still be nervous. They might still feel like, I don't want to make any mistakes. So you want to break the ice by saying, so one technique I use to break the ice first is, to be honest, when I send mails out to participants, and when I talk about usability tests, I don't use the word test. I just say usability session, right? And what that just removes is that idea of something being a test and somebody possibly failing, right? They feel more comfortable because they feel like, oh, okay, great. Another thing I do is I say stuff like, in as much as I was the one that worked on the design, I most likely will say, I'm not part of the team that works on the design, or you could even leave that part out, right? Try to make yourself distant from the design. Why? Because you want the the participant to feel comfortable to voice out their opinions. Why that's important is, imagine if you have a participant that knows that you're the designer on the product and they have one very, should I say, harsh comment about the design in the sense of how usable it is, they might hold you back, right? Because they don't want to hurt you and all that. But at that point in time, it's really important if they say that or if they show that, right? So one of the first things you should do is disclose the purpose of the research and the participant's role in it. So you go as easy as saying, all they're just doing is you're going to read out scenarios to them and they're going to try and carry out the scenarios. No wrong or right answers. They should feel free to explore the entire product. That part about telling them to explore the product is really important because that way they feel like it's their real life scenario. Because imagine you have access to an app outside a usability test in the real world, chances are you would explore the product very well, right? So you want to give them that impression that they can do the same. One thing you can do is you should explain the protocol, and the protocol is just like their role in it. It's critical for it to ask for their permission if you're going to record them. it's critical and it's ethical, right? Because you don't want to be recording people and they don't know. At the same time, in as much as recordings shouldn't be used for fun, in the sense that imagine you recorded a usability test session and you uploaded it online on YouTube, right? You don't want to do that because that's someone's information right there, right? So you're going to make promises to them that you're not going to do the same, and you're also not going to do that. One good rule of thumb is after you've watched the video, that's after the usability test with your team, best to just delete it, because sometimes when you don't delete these things, they might just end up in the wrong places. It's important while you read, after you read the permissions and your rights, they should sign to the agreement, because there's nothing worse than a participant agreeing to, yeah, record me. There's no signed agreement. And months after, they're like, someone recorded me without my permission. And you're like, no, he said yes to that. And there's no proof. So you really need that proof of agreement. Another thing you can also do with the fact that you're saying you're not part of the design team or the team that worked on it is you can tell the participant that the product is work in progress. What this does is it kind of relaxes them. So they know that because it's work in progress, there's room for changes. So they most likely would feel free to express themselves and say, oh, okay, that is wrong. Or I can't click on this. Why is this button like this and all that? The supporting image is very critical because there's something I'm pointing out. It says what the facilitator is reaching out is saying, this is not, oh my God, I need to adjust the copy here. This is not a test of you and your abilities. There are no right or wrong answers. This these 3 lines are really important because what that does is you're kind of giving the participant an impression that this is a playground. You can do what you want to do. We're not testing your intelligence. We're not seeing that, say for example, if we're testing a washing machine, for example, and I know a lot of people, and this is a very bad assumption, it might be good, I don't know, is your washing machine at home is so easy for you to use. But when you go to someone else's house and you see their washing machine, and what kind of washing machine is this, right? And it's so funny because there's a way washing machines are so built that it might be so difficult to use like an extended range of washing machines or even microwaves, for example. In your own house, the button is red or maybe 15 minutes. You just need to do a timer. Someone else's house, you need to press on chicken logo or something. So I noticed that when people are in such a situation, they think the problem is with them. They're like, oh, I'm not smart enough to use this product. But the funny thing is the product was not designed well. It wasn't designed to think about affordance and usability in the case, right? So you want to tell them that you're not testing their intelligence, you're just testing the design of the product. So to execution is when you read out these scenarios and you watch them carry out the scenarios. One of the things you want to do is, first off, if you're designing, if you're testing a prototype, right? Prototypes obviously are not the real product. So there are chances that there might be some places that are not clickable. So you want to tell them and say, this is a prototype. You might experience some parts that are not clickable, or maybe you can't even, you know, with our prototypes, there are limitations like you typing your name in a text field. You might want to tell them about that, right? Because you don't want that to mar the experience of the entire session. There's a very critical part too, and it is called the Think Aloud protocol. Like I said, I was going to talk about it. And what that does is it allows you to see or listen to what the participant is experiencing. It gives you a snapshot into their emotional aspect. So say, for example, if your platform is not making them happy, for example, they could say that out and say, I'm actually looking at the website and oh my God, this doesn't look great. Okay, I've seen the button and all that. To make this easy for us to understand, I have set up a video. Nielsen Norman Group were the ones that created the video, and I'm just going to play it. It's a very short video. And I would advise that even after today's session, if you're going to be conducting usability tests, try to play these videos during your sessions. What this does is, in addition of your explanation, when they watch the videos, they can actually now make sense of what the think aloud protocol is. So I'll be showing us the video. So can we hear the sound, please? I want to confirm we can hear the sound. Please confirm, did we hear that? Because I want to know that. What? You said?
I can't really hear the sound. It's too low or something.
Okay. Just hold on a bit. Just hold on a bit. I would use the external speaker for that. Let me just use a speaker for that. JBL. Sorry, guys. Just want to be sure. For output. Okay, great. So I think this would be great.
What this organization does. The first thing that catches my eye is a section here.
Can we hear that?
There's for something I'm not sure what it's for. So I'll go up here and take a look at the topics. These options don't really tell me much more about what this organization does. The need maybe has to do with regions that have needs. I'm just guessing, I'm not sure. Oops.
So I'm just going to, sorry. So let me just start that again.
I'm looking for ways to support a good cause. What I want to find out is what this organization does. The first thing that catches my eye is this section here. There are steps for something, but I'm not sure what it's for. So I'll go up here and take a look at the topics. These options don't really tell me much more about what this organization does. The need maybe has to do with regions that have needs. I'm just guessing, I'm not sure. So let's go to About Us. Maybe I'll find something in there. This image, maybe this organization is about feeding children. Let's read further. I like these two short paragraphs. Although this first paragraph really doesn't answer my question. Okay, it's not until the second paragraph that I find out what this organization does. I'm looking for ways to support.
So there's that. What that is first off, it's a participant thinking out loud. And what that's good is, imagine you have a session where you play this for your participants to see. It just shows them how they should think out loud. And if you watch the video, you can see that for every page she was telling the facilitator what she was thinking, how she was making sense of content on the website. So it's really important. If you can get your hands on the video, it would be great to play that in sessions. I can also provide a link for that to you guys. So the third part is you're just observing, listening for feedback, and you're probing without accidentally influencing the participant's behavior. Now, this last part, which is probing without influencing the participant behavior, is what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about some techniques that we can use to, should I say, not influence the participant decision. But before we go into that, there's just a few tips that I'll talk about. The first one is talk less and learn more. Remember at the beginning, we said usability tests are not interviews. So it's not a conversation, it's more of you observing people. So you don't want to be observing your participant and say something like, oh wow, you clicked that. Why did you click that and stuff? Or you don't want to interrupt them or do stuff that would influence the next decisions they make. The second one is don't ask participants for what they want, or ask them to predict what they might do in the future. Like, I think I've said this before, usability test is not for you to ask people what features they want, right? Or if you put this feature, will they buy the product? You don't want to do that, right? Just like Jacob Nielsen said, don't ask users what they want, just watch what they do, right? It's a good way of practicing usability tests. Third one is treat the session as an observation rather than a conversation. So I said that in the first one. The fourth one is don't stay completely silent. Probe at the right time and in the right way. And just like I said, we're going to be talking about the techniques for you to probe the right way and at the right time. The first technique we're going to be looking at is called echo. The way echo works is, say for example, you're observing a session, and this always happens. You would always find something like this where a participant would have a question. And their question speaks to the fact that they're not sure how they will interact with an interface. So they might say stuff like, do I click this button, right? Or this button looks big. Or what is this button? One of the ways you can do is you can echo back what they've said, not in a commanding tone, not like maybe say, for example, the participant says, I don't understand what's happening here. And you're like, you don't understand what's happening here, right? No, that's not right. What you would want to go is, you don't understand what's happening here, right? Because what that does is, when you say that, you're creating a mindset for them to rethink what they're saying, and they will now elaborate more on that, right? Them elaborating more on that will mean that they will now tell you, like, say, for example, if you do stuff like that, you most likely will have answers that say, yeah, I'm not sure what this button is. It's because the label here is not clear enough. Do you get my point? So echoing back to them is a good way of not influencing them. Say, for example, in that scenario, if the participant had said something about this button is confusing, and you're like, guys, see the button there now. It's written, this button is meant to do that. You've already influenced that by explaining what that button is, right? But then you echoing back to them and the participant elaborating what they meant by their initial question means that you get a deeper insight into what caused that frustration at the beginning. And it's one of the things you can note down and say, oh, maybe our labels are not so great. The second technique is a boomerang. Just like the Australian word tool that is meant to come back to someone, you can bounce back a user's question to them. So an example I've written here is the participant says, should I view the contact page? One way you can do that is, now this is different from echo. You know, echo, you're just repeating what the person says. But here you're bouncing it back in another form. You can just say, what do you think? Or you can answer and say, what would you do if you were home? Or what would you do if you were in a different, it depends on, you can create an atmosphere that's comfortable for them. And what this does is, first off, remember that in this scenario, the user just said, the participant said, should I view the contact page, right? If you're a bad facilitator, you would say, yes, now view it. Is not why we're doing this test. But because you don't want to bias your data, you want to actually make this look like it's the real world, right? You just send that question back to them in a gentle tone. So it doesn't look like you're condescending and you're trying to make them feel like, what was that question about? Imagine if the user says, should I view the contact page? And you're like, what do you think now? Right? You don't want to do that. You want to use a gentle tone. And what this does is it just allows them to work the issue as though they're in the real world. The third and final technique is called Colombo. This technique was derived from a movie character that found a way to hide his intellectual skills. And for some reason, the character is a detective. And for some reason, because he was able to hide his intellectual skills, criminal story was dull, right? So imagine getting into an interrogatory room. You'll probably say something stupid. You probably leave off some details and the criminals will think, oh, well, what kind of detective is this? And they will lose guard. And because of that, he got a lot of criminals into prison. But we're not trying to catch thieves here or bad people, right? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to take a part of that persona, which is the ability to act smart, right? A user asks you a question. What you can do is you can ask part of that question, keep quiet for a bit, continue, keep quiet. Now, those keeping quiet parts will make the participant interrupt. And let me give an example here. So participant says, what happens if I click this? And the facilitator says, you're wondering what happens if you, so now, because of how we humans are, the participant is most likely not going to repeat that question, which is what happens if I click this? You'll be like, no, I'm just really trying to say, I'm not clear on what the label of this button means, right? So you want to use this, especially this technique is one of the trickiest out there, because if you keep repeating this, it might get annoying for the participants in the sense that they're like, why do you keep repeating my questions back to me and stuff like that? So you want to find the right way to bring it in, because one of all the techniques is the most difficult to try out. And when it works really well, because the participants would give you another viewpoint of what their question is about. So let's say we're done conducting usability tests. You're giving them some scenarios, let's say like 4 to 6 scenarios, right? And they're done. It's a good time for you to probably ask follow-up questions. And please, let's be careful here in the sense that the follow-up questions you ask here shouldn't be, so now that you've used our product, what feature do you think we should add to it? No, it shouldn't be that. Why I'm saying this is very critical, because some product teams do this. Because now at this point, because you've seen someone use it and the person is a customer, and because of how we are as business people, we're now curious to ask someone and say, what features should we bring in? Like I said, people would say they like that feature, but they might never use it. For crying out loud, people will go on Twitter and say, can they use the edit button? Twitter might bring this thing out and people will not use it. So there's that. Try not to ask people what features they should bring. What you should do instead is conduct a post-test UX survey. And what this survey is doing is it is checking for their satisfaction, right? Say, for example, what was their experience when they were using the platform? So one of your questions could be, how pleasant was it? If you're going to ask how pleasant was it, you should ask, was it also terrible? Because now the problem with just asking how pleasant what is that kind of question can be leading. So one of the things you can even do to remove a leading question like how pleasant what is you can ask, how was the experience, right? And the options could have pleasant and terrible. Do you get? Now, if you notice, I tried to change that leading question to a non-leading question, because when you ask a question like how pleasant was it, you're trying to tell the person that your expectation is that that experience was pleasant. So they should tell you to a degree how pleasant it was. It's like you're not giving room to the fact that it was probably not pleasant. So you don't want to ask a leading question. After it's done, if you notice this part I said is important, please give them their compensation. Whatever you promised them, please pay them right there. Don't say, I'm going to send you a check, stuff like that. Give them right there. It's very important because they've given you out of their time, and them giving you out of their time is very good for you and your product team to find ways to remove usability problems. Now, the final part is right after you've done all of this, you've paid the compensation, you've wrapped everything up. Analysis and reporting is one critical part that if you miss it, it defeats the purpose of conducting usability tests, right? So you want to be able to create reports that are not too bulky, to be honest. You want to be able to create reports that are direct, they're easily consumable. One way of doing that is in your report, that's after analysis, right? You want to show your metrics properly. You want to show what you've observed, right? And you want to show them real quick in the sense that anybody that is reading the report can make sense of it. You don't want to start writing a novel, right? Because reports, especially research reports, should be should be documents that can be picked up and made sense of immediately. The moment your reports are a lot of pages, nobody will read that. You're the only one that will be able to make sense of that. The analysis part is, it is very good for you to analyze your results as soon as possible, because in as much as you recorded, right, there might be some other things that you thought of at that point in time that you had jotted down. So you might want to really, maybe after all your sessions, analyze the results immediately, right? Because these observations are really fresh in your mind. So you want to put those down immediately. You also want to pull out the most serious and frequent problems that users encountered. A way to do this is you can do like some counts and see how many times people had these problems, and are these problems very critical to the users achieving the task that you gave them, right? Third one is you should want to extract hard numbers from the data. Like I said initially, when you're deciding what metrics to choose, this is the point where you want to look at what the success rate was. So I gave them 6 scenarios. The first scenario, was the person able to complete it? Yes or no? How long did it take them to complete it? So you want to be able to get those numbers. And now the good thing about that is you can mix those quantitative numbers with the qualitative numbers, because through qualitative, you can use this form to illustrate some certain problems that you observe during the test. In combination with your quantitative data, you can make do with data now that your team can now say, okay, in as much as it took users this long to complete. Now I'm going to give you a real life scenario so we understand this better. Now, I remember a usability test I conducted recently. I know I've said this a lot because I actually conduct a lot of usability tests. I love it so much because if you really look at it, it's something that gives you a lot of rich data and is easy to conduct, right? So I conducted one recently, and for some weird reason, I conducted with 6 people, and 5 of them completed their task in record time, so like 2 minutes. And there was this one guy that completed his in, I think it was 5-6 minutes. Now, the problem wasn't because it was more like some interface issue, right? The problem was more about him understanding a particular terminology, right? And that part, in as much as it was the only one that he extended to 6 minutes or 5 minutes, it was very critical for us as a team, because we started to ask, what are the chances that we have other users out there that might have an issue with this term that we're using? So why not simplify this language we have on our interface? The last part is you should rank the issues based on their impact, categorize them into critical, serious, and minor. Why this is important, like I said in the beginning, is not all usability issues that you uncover will be able to be attended to by your team. Because guess what? They're also working on other things, right? So you rather take a tweaking approach than a redesign approach, right? So you want to see what is critical, what is important to our customers completing the most important goal or jobs that they want to get done on our platforms, right? If something is minor, okay, it could be minor, and at the same time, it could require little effort from our team to conduct. So those are the kind of things you want to be able to create for your team, so that when you guys have this meeting after the report, you can decide on what issues to handle, right? Like I said, most of the time you will not handle every issue, right? You handle the ones that the team can do. Maybe in the future, you can come back to those issues and try to tweak them. This is coming to the end of today's session. I placed this here because it's important for us to say, for example, we want to learn more about this beyond today's session. There are very key resources that are out there. A lot of what I know today is from Steve Krug and Jacob Nielsen. Steve Krug has a book called Rocket Surgery Made Easy. It's really small, and you can read it if you're traveling, right? And that's why I like Steve Krug. He writes books like that. So you can read it while you're traveling. It's majorly about usability tests. And the objective, if you look at the title, it said Rocket Surgery Made Easy. Is talking about how usability tests that were considered to be only for professionals can be conducted by you that are just learning. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Like I said, I get a lot of learnings about usability tests from Jacob Nielsen, who is considered a usability guru. He has written 13 books on usability, which is massively huge, right? He's a co-founder of the Nielsen Norman Group, and he writes a lot of articles and does some videos on that. He also co-authored an important book that helps you to think about recruiting users, which is the last suggestion here. And there's this really, it's bulky, the book is bulky, but if you have enough time, you could pick it up. It's the Handbook of Usability Testing, How to Plan, Design, and Conduct Effective Tests. Let me give you a trick to how I was able to consume this book. Sometimes when I want to conduct usability tests and I have some questions and I'm not sure how to go about it, I could just flip to the pages or the chapters that talk about that issue and just read it. And what you find over time is, oh my God, every time you have an issue, you come to some chapters and read it, and you've probably read 80 to 90% of the entire book. So these are really good resources. If you need access to some of these resources, you can reach out to me on Twitter. I can find a way to make some of these resources available to you, if I can make a way for that. Beyond that, our final quote for today is, the most effective way of understanding what works and what doesn't in an interface is to watch people use it. Thank you very much. A lot of my illustrations that I used in these slides are from FreePic. I just tweaked it a bit. And I need to say this, notice I just did that. A lot of us designers don't do that, where we use free resources and we don't attribute that we took it from somewhere. It's really important. Try to do that. If you design a web page and an illustration that was gotten from FreePic or some free resource, you can tell the developer to put it in the code somewhere and include it that this was collected from somewhere, right? So we come to the end of today's session. I believe there will be a lot of questions at this point, so you can shoot.
Thank you, sir.
Please, what's your Twitter handle?
Emmanuel C. Adigwe. So let me just open my Twitter so you see it. So that's my Twitter handle, Emmanuel C. Adigwe. I also have a thread.
Thank you.
I also have a thread for newcomers to UX design. You could go to the thread. I'm actually happy that it has made a lot of sense to budding designers. So you could read it, and there are a few insights there that will be important for you. Yeah, so any other questions? Or if you have comments also, it'd be great. I think someone wanted to say something.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Abel.
I wanted to ask, like, you were saying we should try to make our scenarios actionable and not leading. How do you do that? Like, I feel it's a thin line between both of them. So I don't know if
Okay. So the first thing is, to make it actionable means that your scenarios should mean that when they are read out to participants should carry out specific actions, yeah? It should enable them to carry out specific actions. If you say it shouldn't be leading, it means you don't want to leave clues about the interface in your task scenarios. So like the example I gave, an actionable scenario is something that is different from telling a participant that go to our website and tell me what you will do, right? That scenario is not actionable because what they just do is they go to the website and they're talking to you. But an actionable one would be go to the website, perform this task and do this and do that, right? Now, for the other case, a leading scenario, like the example I gave, and I'll give another one, is, let me think of something. So for example, I could think of, I really want to think about a scenario that we're conversant with. So say for example, Twitter, right? Twitter has bookmark, right? We're conversant with the bookmark thing. Now we might not necessarily want to lead people to that bookmark session, in as much as the action word is to bookmark a tweet, right? You could change your scenario into something like, you've seen a tweet you're interested in, and you don't have enough time to read about. Why not keep it for the future and blah, 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 right? Now, what you've done there carefully is you've removed that bookmark part. You know why you remove bookmark? Because if you go to Twitter interface, for example, you can see right here, there's bookmarks, right? What will happen is the moment you read that out, bookmark, and I've noticed this, you see people that will just click on bookmark session and they get there. I don't want to click on my bookmark session so people not see what I'm saving. Well, yeah, that's the idea.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We know what we used to bookmark on our Twitter. Let's keep it on the low. Any other question, suggestion?
So
Can I go?
Yeah, you can go.
Hello.
Esther.
Hello.
Yeah.
Scenario, and then can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So I tried to do a usability testing for a product. The product was a food delivery service. So it was supposed to be try and order bagels and follow the process. It was a checkout session. But somehow someone said they couldn't find, okay, so you know how Jumia is, where you have to scan through the product and then find the product and go ahead and check out. So someone gave the feedback that she couldn't find the product, bagels itself. Is there any way that, am I supposed to directly direct them to the part of the screen that the product is, or what exactly, if I want to?
Esther, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Did you hear anything I said?
Yeah, I got that. It was because of the way it ended. I thought we lost you there. Okay, so that question, yeah. So what you're asking is you're observing a session and a participant, for example, couldn't complete a task because they couldn't find something. What do you do at that point? It's simple. And I need you to get this part because I feel like this is the part that makes you conduct real good usability tests. Don't give them a clue, right? Don't say anything. Don't say, oh, it's right there. No. What that has shown you is there's a problem with your product, especially when it comes to your checkout page, right? You now need to come back with your team and say, how can we make it very easy for our users to view and identify this part? One other thing you can do that I always do is, because there's always a possibility that the user might take a longer time to identify that thing and later on find it. While they're struggling to find it, I just give them some time, right? I don't say anything. I probably just repeat the question back to me and I give them some time to see if they can still get it. Then if their time seems long, I just say, okay, thank you very much. Sorry you couldn't find that. I always apologize to them. I try not to make it look like, oh my God, dull, or you couldn't find it. No, I'm like, sorry that you couldn't find that. So let's just move to the next scenario. Do you get? So don't show them. It's a sign that there's a problem with that interface.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So you talked about prioritizing the problems you come up with at the end of your testing. How do you do that, and how do you prioritize what problems to focus on, and whose decision is this? Is it the designer's decision, or is it a collective thing with your stakeholders and developers?
So to do this, to explain this better, yeah, I'm going to open a board. So I use Miro for collaboration. And there's something that I want to show you. And I like the question you asked, especially when you say, is it collaborative? Is it a collective effort? Or is just you who makes that decision? So that's the first thing I'll answer while this is loading, right? Is first off, is a collective decision. It's the entire thing that decides what is to be worked on. Now, how to go about that is what is critical. So I'm coming, let me just, okay. All right, so I found the bot. So I'm going to show you a priority scale that I like, that I've seen work, and I've seen teams use. It's called the effort/impact scale. Now, sorry, I just need to take these guys out. So I can't even do anything because of you. So what this is it's a graph, impact against effort. Now, the graph is divided into 4 quadrants. So the first one is at the lower part here, it says low impact, low effort, low impact, high effort. What this means is whatever I place here means that it is going to have low impact on the team or maybe on our business goals or our users, and we need low effort to make those changes. This is going to have low impact and requires high effort. And the same goes for others. This is high impact, low effort, high impact, high effort. Now, this part that is colored yellow is the sweet spot. We call it the sweet spot because we don't need to put a lot of resources into it to make it happen, right? All we just have to do is maybe some little time, get maybe 2 or 3 people to work on it, and it's going to bring a lot of change to our product. Now, what happens is the way you can do this is you can have a small workshop, right? That is just focused on this. You've written out all the scenarios. You might even place them on sticky notes, write them out. And now these sticky notes, you could have them placed somewhere and have people vote, right, on where this sticky notes should be placed. Do you get my point? So that way it becomes a collective team effort. And you see that a lot of people are saying, yes, let's put it there. Let's put that there. Let's put this there. And the team now decides that this is what we should work on now. For the high impact, low effort, definitely that's the one you want to work on now. The one that you might ignore is the low impact, high effort one. You don't want to put a lot of work into something that is not going to cause a lot of change, right? So like you asked, yes, it's a collective effort. And this is one of those tools you can use to make a change. And it's a lot effective we're observing or observers of the session. It's a lot easier for them to understand the context of where these problems came from. Is that clear to you, George?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Was any other questions? Anybody? I can see 16 of us, right? I feel like there's some people that are shy to ask questions. Please ask questions. Please ask questions. Or if you feel like you're shy, you can just DM me on Twitter and ask all these questions. But I'd like to ask these questions now because what that does is when I answer the question, someone else might have that question in their mind and we've helped 2 people. So I'm just going to give like 2-3 minutes. Then if there are no questions, we end the session today.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
In doing a usability testing, can we mostly use friends, like people we know that probably will use the product? Like, can those be our users for testing?
So yes and no. So the first thing is, remember when we're talking about, let me just go back to that. When we're talking about the right times to conduct testing, there's one part we said we can conduct with friends, and that's sketches, right? Because with sketches, it's not a full-on usability test. You're just, you I don't want to use the word draw or you drew. You illustrated something that is meant to be a design of a product, right? And your question is, they should try and figure out what it is about. Even if you use your closest friend or your enemy, there is no form of bias because what you're just trying to see is if they make sense of that. Now, the issue with using close friends or family or colleagues in actual usability tests is because of the introduction of bias. Because first off, you don't want to, one major one you should avoid is using people that are involved in that project, right? Because they know their way around the product. So I doubt if you have a lot of usability issues to identify. That's the first one. Try not to use people that know the product so well, in the sense that they might not be part of the team, but they're part of the company that's working on the product. And try not to bring in friends, because the problem with friends is, first of all, why bring in that friend? Did you bring in the friend because he's representative of your actual users, or because the person is a friend? Because what happens at that point is friends bring in these social dynamics that affect your design, in the sense that because your friend might lose the importance of why you're conducting the session, right? You get too jovial, first off, or imagine if the friend sees an issue that causes a lot of problem for them. They might not want to give their honest opinion because you're my friend and I don't want to hurt you. So you don't want to do that, right? So try to stick away from, if you can do it, right? Try to stick away from friends, family, and teammates that are involved in the project.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is that the last question from everyone? I have my own question of people of God. Did we enjoy today's session? Please be honest. Was it too long? Was it?
Yes,
I can't see your face, to be honest. Just tell me.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Feolua.
Yes, I did.
That question is leading. You should have asked us how was today's session.
So your question is,
Grace, what did you say?
I said you should have
Now my
asked
question
us
is
how
leading.
was today's session.
Now you people are smart people. You people are smart people. Senseful in our head. You people are smart. That's it. It's leading. Thank you. If that's all I get from today, that means people understand.
Smart now.
You know Linda. You know Linda. You know Linda. Is that Linda? Thank
Okay. If younger ones are doing usability testing, that would be great for our generation, to be honest. Like, so I'm guessing we don't have any other questions. So I don't know how this ends. I think you're. So do I end the call? Do I say something, then we end the call, or okay?
Hi, Emmanuel. Thank you very much for this session. I enjoyed the session, and I'm sure everybody enjoyed the session as well. So it was nice having you on the session to share your knowledge on usability testing. I'm sure everybody will agree with that. So, is there an assignment for them?
But why are you doing this? Why?
Oh my God. Emmanuel, please ignore them. Is there an assignment for them?
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Please.
God bless. Okay.
All right. So if there's no assignment, thank you everybody for joining the call. So we'll have Emmanuel share his slide with us so that you can go through it. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Bye everybody.